What's good to YouTube? It's been back in another video. Let's talk about a couple of decks that are actually going to be extremely viable within the next month or two when we get new support. These decks have the capacity to win a regionals, possibly even a major event. They will definitely be on the radar. They're definitely going to be able to top events. So I think if you guys want to pick up some decks, some cards for these decks, it's good to know in advance. So without further ado, let's talk about the first deck, which everyone I think already has a good sense about, and that's actually Fire Kings. Yep, we're getting the Fire King structure deck next month, which happens to have a plethora of new cards that are very, very powerful for the Fire King archetype. These cards are extremely pushed. They're very, very modern, and they do a lot for the deck. Not to mention the fact that we're getting a bunch of new fire support as well, right? Like fire monsters in the form of Rescue Waves, Fire Kings, that seem to be really pushed recently. Like a lot of new fire support, and Promethean Princess is a generic Link 3 that is possibly one of the best Link monsters of the year. It allows you to special summon a fire monster during the main phase from your graveyard, non-targeting, doesn't have any restrictions besides locking you to fire monsters while she's on the field, meaning you can link her away to bypass that restriction. She also has an extremely powerful effect in the graveyard that allows you to bring her back over and over, loop her over and over, and have insane follow-up and recursion for the deck. So I think Fire Kings are going to be probably very likely tier 1. They're tier 1 in the OCG right now, and we are also getting some new support for the actual Snake Eyes archetype. And this one card actually is very powerful in both Rescue Ace and Fire King, called Snake Eyes Populous. She's essentially a better copy of Dark Witch, because when she's added to your hand, you can special summon her out, and when she's special summoned, you can add a Snake Eyes Spiral Trap from inject your hand. So more or less the same thing as Dark Witch, but when you link her off for Link Removal, she can actually place herself in the continuous Spiral Trap zone as a free fodder, so you can use it to send off of something like the original Snake Eye, and then just continue to plus off of that. So off of one Populous, you're getting at least 2 bodies on the board, and a deck like Fire King, you can special summon the Onyx onto the table and then continue furthering your plays. So effectively, you know, off like one card, not even using your normal summon, if you have something like Bonfire to actually add Populous, it's just really insane. It snowballs a lot of advantage for the Sinful Spoils engine-esque decks, or any decks that can play that engine, and Fire King just happens to be one of them because Onyx is a level 1 fire monster, and the deck is very powerful. Off of one card, you can get a huge board full of interrupts, so this is definitely something to watch out for on the horizon. I mean, if you guys haven't already picked up your Wanteds, while they're relatively back to regular market price right now, I think they're like 50 or 60 bucks, definitely pick them up if you can, because this engine will be extremely good in a plethora of decks, not just Fire King, guys. This will be a very chase engine as soon as it goes out of print, so I think now's a chance to get it, especially if you want to play decks like that. Next, moving on, is another deck that's coming out about a little bit further on the horizon in Phantom Nightmare, but that's actually the Silenforcers. And these guys are effectively a retrained archetype of the original Skull Guardian, as well as Novox's Prayer. So it's really cool. We got these cards in, like, I think Tournament Pack 2 or something crazy. And they were effectively just vanilla monsters that really had no lore at all. It was just some girl praying, and then Skull Guardian would be ritual summoned out. And it had nothing to tie it together. And I was always curious about what the lore was. And I'm glad we're actually getting a retrain, because now we can finally understand what the lore is. Apparently it's about Novox, who is praying for a Guardian, and then eventually you get it in the form of the Skull Guardian, the Silence Forcing Protector, who is actually an Omni Negate while he's on the field in tandem with Novox, and it's really easy off of one card to set up this entire lock. It's effectively a control deck that allows you to snowball a bunch of advantage plus follow-up, and then establish Skull Guardian as an Omni Negate on the board. It's almost like Pure Zodiac, you know, you have the Trident, which has a free interruption in the form of the pop, but then you play a bunch of non-engine and other stuff and follow-up in addition to that, so you can outgrind your opponent with resources in addition to having the free Omni Negate. So it's a really powerful ritual deck, and it's actually surprising because it's been a minute since ritual decks have actually been good. I think Drytron was probably the last time that these decks were tier 1, but it just happens that this deck is actually tier 1 in the OCG right now. It's not super popular, but it's very good. You can also play existing support for extra deck like Nadir Servant, which is at 3, right? So being able to send Herald of the Arc Light to search for your ritual cards is just nuts. And then on top of all of that, we actually have pre-preparation of Rites, which is insane. It's an auto +1 for the deck, because you're able to search for the new ritual spell in that deck, which is Silent Forcing Prayer, which allows you to ritual summon any light ritual monster, but also mentions Seravis, Saphira, and the new Skull Guardian on the card itself. So you're actually able to add a plethora of different cards depending on what you want. If you want like targeting protection, you can just add Seravis. And then if you want something like a follow-up, you can potentially add Saphira as well, which allows you to draw 2 cards and discard 1 in the end phase. And of course, you're being able to add the Skull Guardian, which is like the main monster for the ritual in that deck. The deck is, I think, is really, really powerful. It'll definitely be at least a tier 2 deck. I plan on playing this deck because I just love ritual monsters. They're just so freaking cool. And I definitely think that if you guys have the opportunity now to stock up on things like Nadir Servant, as well as high rarities of Preparation of Rites, because this is a card that's going to be played at 3 copies in the deck itself, as well as even Diviner the Herald, because there's a combo where you can actually send the Trias Hierarchia, and then he tributes the Diviner the Herald. And then when Diviner the Herald is tributed, it has the effect that special summons a level 2 or lower fairy monster from your deck directly, which is the Novox SILENFORC Disciple. And when she's specialed, you get to start off your entire engine by placing a continuous SILENFORC spell trap onto your spell trap zone, and then you search, and it's just full combo. So it's really, really nice. So those cards are definitely something you guys should pick up for anticipation of that deck being good. And then next is actually an existing deck that we already have that's kind of ebbed and flowed out of the format. But Labyrinth, I think they're going to be extremely good because we are actually getting a extremely powerful trap card. That's just like defies the logics of what trap cards actually do. And we're also getting another trap card in Phantom Nightmare that's also decently good as well. But the one that we're getting in Maze of Memories is especially powerful because this card is called Transaction Rollback. It's a trap card that says pay half your life points and target a normal trap card in your opponent's graveyard except Transaction Rollback. This effect becomes that normal trap card's effect when that trap card is activated. But that's not all. That's not the effect we really care about. The one that we really care about is the one that's in the graveyard. It has an effect in the graveyard that says you can banish this card from your graveyard and pay half your life points, then target one normal trap in your graveyard except Transaction Rollback. This effect becomes that normal trap card's effect when that card is activated. So what you would effectively do with this is when you draw it, you discard it off of any of the furnitures. It's a free send, right? Because it has that effect in the graveyard. So effectively, you're getting a free Labyrinth effect, free furniture to set up something like a big welcome Labyrinth, and then you have Transaction Rollback in your graveyard for the follow-up. And then you can easily use it to actually copy one of your trap cards in your graveyard, which is really nice because it bypasses the restriction where you can only activate one big welcome Labyrinth per turn, for example, because this copies the effect, so it doesn't have that restriction. So you're effectively able to use double big welcome Labyrinth in one turn, which is absolutely crazy if you think about the repercussions of that. And then the other trap card that we're actually getting for the deck, which is also quite good, is TEUFEL, which is coming out in Phantom Nightmare. And this card says declare one monster card name. Neither player can special summon monsters with that original name for the rest of the turn, except from the graveyard. But the effect, again, that we really care about is the graveyard effect. Because yes, this also has a graveyard effect where it says you can banish this card from your graveyard and declare a monster card name. Neither player can activate the effects of monsters on the field with that original name for the rest of the turn. So again, we're sending this off of the furniture. We're setting something like a welcome Labyrinth. And then we have this in the graveyard as extra padding for when our opponent starts their plays. You know, we see what they're playing. They normal summon something or they special summon something. We can use the effect of TEUFEL. And then that means that they cannot activate the monster effect on the field with that original name. So it's really, really nice interaction there. It's definitely good against a lot of decks that have like ignition effects, not triggers, because, you know, obviously you can respond to the summon window and then banish this to stop them from playing. And then the other thing that's really good about Labyrinth, obviously, is the fact that it bypasses Hot Red, Dragon Archfiend, King Calamity. I don't know if this is really popular, if Centurions are all that, but it's currently quite popular in the metagame because it's a newer deck. So a lot of people are kind of capitalizing on the fact that you can lock your opponent out and not really have to play the game because you do have access to Crimson Dragon, right? So that in itself, the fact that, you know, Labyrinth, it doesn't really care if you're locked out by Hot Red, Dragon Archfiend. You just set 5 or whatever, and then you pass your turn. You have the ability to actually win through a Hot Red Calamity. So I think that, you know, in itself helps the deck a lot as well. And then moving on is the last and final deck that I think is going to be really good, and that's actually the pure Snake Eyes deck. This is actually seeing some play in the OCG, and I was watching a couple of videos. This deck actually does a lot. It puts on a lot of bodies on the board because the in-engine level 1s are already really, really strong. You have Snake Eye Ash, which allows you to search for a level 1 fire monster from your deck when he's normal or special summoned. And then you have cards like Snake Eye Oak that says when it's normal or special, you can target one of your level 1 fire monsters that's banished or in your graveyard, add it to your hand or special summon it. So off Oak, you get 2 bodies. Obviously, we already talked about Populous in tandem with cards like Bonfire. Yes, in this deck, it works very, very well. It's very, very good because you can set up the Populous, make Link Karibo, and then, you know, send it off for the original Snake Eye, summon out the Snake Eye Oak. Oak will revive that same Populous, and boom, you already have 3 bodies on the field without even using your normal summon if you start off with Bonfire. So it's just insane link potential going into powerful things like SP Little Knight or IP Masquerena. And then on top of all of that, you have the rest of your deck being able to play a bunch of non-engine, you know, like smaller engines, like the Snake Eye stuff. You can play a lot of non-engine. You can mix it with other things. And then you could also play actual power cards like Snake Eye's Flamberge Dragon, which a lot of people don't know what this card does. But effectively, when this card is sent to the graveyard, you can actually special summon 2 level 1 fire monsters from your graveyard, which means that you can easily summon out a Snake Eye Oak and then just go insane on your combos because he just brings back a bunch of bodies. And obviously it pairs again well with the existing fire support because a lot of these guys are fire. So with Promethean Princess, you know, you're infinitely looping a bunch of bodies. You're getting the Snake Eyes Dragon on the board as additional disruption and follow up because he allows you to special summon a monster card that's treated as a continuous spell card during your opponent's turn. So it just does so much for what a deck wants to do in a link-based grind meta. You're just getting a bunch of bodies, a bunch of follow-up, and a bunch of powerful non-engines. So this deck will definitely be good. And I know these existing cards are very cheap right now because a lot of people are disregarding the cards. They only think that, you know, we're just playing Wanted and Sinful Spoils Witch because those cards are already good in existing decks like Rescue Ace. But nope, guys, this deck will actually be decently good, and these cards are really, really good pickups right now. So if you have the opportunity to do that, definitely do so. I'm actually excited to play the pure Snake Eye deck because I think this is really, really cool, actually taking advantage of the deck's intended use. So yeah, that's all I had for this video. If you guys have any other cards or decks that you think are going to be good, let us know in the comments below. Other than that, please subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.